Hello, everyone. Namaste, and welcome again to BNB Language Academy. This time in this video, I'm turning to the coursework of Grade 10 English, and I'm going to recite a poem by Rabindranath Tagore. You might have heard. Rabindranath Tagore is a Bengali poet, and he has contributed a lot for the Bengal Renaissance. And then before I go to recite the poem, I just would like to create a kind of context. The poem begins with the live thus, such a very, very powerful opening, so as to challenge the conventional notion of worship and spirituality. Tagore is not in mood of very much passive ritualistic practices. He want to challenge that very passivity, and he want to turn that passive ritualistic practices into very active engagement. And he was one of the prominent figure in Bengal Renaissance, and that was a period of a significant social, cultural, and intellectual reform in India. Actually, when he wrote this poem, and this poem came from his the entire book Gitanjali, and for that which was the Nobel Prize winner. And Tagore, he believed in the God, but that was present in everyday life, not in the temple and somewhere. And he is with the humanistic vision. So for him, the God is there where in the service of humanity. So the poem reflects that his belief of rejecting the idea of detached, inaccessible deity and advocating for the spirituality rooted in action at that time, rather coming back to the daily life of the people. And so, in this regard, we can say one of the central theme, maybe that is why the rejection of the ritualistic worship. But you have to keep this thing in mind, okay? When you read the poetry, recite the poetry, and then it will make you better understand. And again, another very important theme is the world of God. Where does the God live? God's presence. God's presence is for the Tagore in the world of labor and suffering. Not in the holy temple and in holy dresses and so on. So there, and then there comes a line somewhere in between when later on, like there where the tiller is tilling the hard ground and where the pathmaker is breaking stone. So this is how the God lives. So he's making a kind of dust connectivity. He's making connection. He wanted Indian people of that time to work, to come to the contact of the soil and work, rather going in the temple and offering flowers and praising people, and come down on the dusty soil. That is the very, very significant phrases, and the phrase that I loved a lot. And then you'll also find another phrase over there, like God's garment is covered with the dust. Since the God himself or herself, let's say, is there with the dust, then why not? Okay, why shall we be there with the, let's say, very well dressed? Okay, let's go with the tattered clothes. Let's go to the soil. Let's toil. I know that is where the God lives. Then sweating is very important, and that is how in nutshell, this poem is a challenge that the poet is challenging the passivity of traditional, religious practices, and he's advocating here in the poem for the connection with the divine through service to humanity. Okay, and then he also emphasizes in the poem about the God's presence in the world of labor and the suffering. So far, Indian people were believing that the God lives there in the golden temples. Rather, he's just breaking this very dogmatic no ethos of the Indian people, that it's not the golden temple where the God lives. Rather, God lives with the farmers. God lives with the sweating of the people. It's a prompt. It's a question. It questions. That's why this poem is very one of my favorite, because I found this poem questioning where we truly encounter the God, where we truly encounter the divine power, and how can we be the best serve the world around us, and that is being connected with the God. And where does the God find? Yes, of course, the God finds not in the golden temple, rather will find God in the where. Where do we find God? Yes, we'll find God there in the toil, in the work, hard work. That is what Rabindranath Tagore was reviving the very no a kind of Vinasha. He was bringing a Vinasha, the way of people, changing the idea of people through his philosophy. Okay, now let us go to the poem and make some recite. Okay, let me recite the poem and let's make. It's a very I think you'll love this poem a lot. This is one of my favorite, and I do believe the same with the cash. Okay, this is prescribed in the class 10 English book in Nepal, and then okay, it's written by Rabindranath Tagore, and it begins. So, what is the title? Live this chanting and singing. Look at the very title. Live this, live this. Okay, it's giving direct, kind of order. Live this chanting and singing, Rabindranath Tagore. Okay, let's look at the first stanza. Live this chanting and singing and telling of bits. Whom does you worship in this lonely dark corner of a temple with doors all shut? Wow. Open thine eyes and see thy God is not before thee. You'll not find God there in the golden temple. Dear friends, live the standing. Okay. What about the second stanza? Very interesting, right? He's there where the tiller is telling the hard ground and where the pathmaker is breaking stones. Oh my God. He's with them in sun and in shower, and his garment is covered with dust. Put off thy holy mantle, and even like him, come down on the dusty soil. You see, dear people, you'll not find God. Okay, detailed comprehension, I'll come later. Anyway, I couldn't stop myself to tell you that, it's suggesting people, it's telling people that God is not there in the golden temple. Rather, you'll find God in the with the farmers, who's working very hard in the fields and farms. You'll find the girl with the laborers, okay, working very hard there and breaking the stones and building the roads and so on. He's with them in sun and sour, and the garment is covered with dust. This is very interesting. Put off thy holy mantle. That's why do not cover yourself with a very well dressed, because when at that time there was a mentality of Indian people that when they go temple they should go with the very well dressed, holy clothes, perhaps the newly bought, or if it's not newly bought, at least very well washed, yeah, well ironed things, and then gods will be very happy. But no, that is this Tagore is making upside down this idea and telling that God himself is in tattered clothes. Okay, his garment itself is covered with dust. That's why you have to put off. Come on, Indian people, come and let's go. Let's work hard. I think this somehow I think in Nepal, Mayor Harka Sampang might be very much influenced by this philosophy of Rabindranath Tagore, perhaps. Yes, that's what he's not very much interested in wearing very well dressed clothes. Rather, he loves the dust and he's working days and nights there in the soil. All right, so let's go to the third stanza, deliverance. Wow, one of the very interesting things he talks about deliverance, redemption. Okay, that very freedom. At the time There was a belief that, if you are very near to God, if you want to get redemption, then what you do? You go back to the temple and worship the God. Okay, you meditate. And but here, he's rejecting this idea. Tagore is rejecting this idea and telling, where is this deliverance to be found? There's a kind of rhetorical question. He's making a rhetorical question. Our master himself has joyfully taken upon him the bonds of creation. Look at the master, our master, the God himself is not free. How can he be free? What a very rhetorical question. Oh my God. He bound with us all forever. The God is there in the service of humankind. Okay, God is there with us. He's bound with us. Even the God himself is not free. Then how can we be free? By chanting and worshiping in the golden temple. And in his very final, stanza, he makes a statement again. It's very, very, commanding in his voice, like, come out of thy meditation, come out of thy meditation, and leave aside thy flowers and incense. You'll not find God's in connection with the flowers and the incense, what harm is there if thy clothes become tattered and stained? The God himself is with the dusty clothes. And why are you taking worries? Okay, that's why. Please come down, come out of thy meditations, meet him and stand by him. If you want to meet the God, if you want to stand by the God in toil and in sweat of thy brow. Okay, you have got to toil, you have got to work hard, and you have got to sweat. There should be a sweat. You should be full of sweats. Okay, that's what very interesting. So, in a very, very detailed comprehension part, I'll come to the letter. Thank you so much for today. Bye.